what I want to ask you is, when do you feel truly alive? What makes you feel alive? Who makes you feel alive? Who do you feel you speak to them, or you are with them, or you listen to their voice and you feel enlivened? Hello, sunshines, and welcome back to Paradigm Shift with Ayandastood. I'm so excited to be back with you and to be back with my mic. And I'm currently in Mexico City saying hello, 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 what's up? Look at the eyes, vibing. Anyways, today we are reclaiming, redefining, reframing the erotic. And I am so excited for this because it's something that I think about constantly, something that changed my perspective on living and made me ask the question of like, am I actually alive? Am I actually alive? Some of the topics we are going to be covering in today's journey together is, what has Audre Lorde said about the erotic? What has Bell Hooks said about love with respect to aliveness, which is what we're going to be talking about most today? What has Esther Perel said about the erotic? And then also, of course, why I care about this so much, what my experiences through the erotic have been, and specifically the way that we're going to be defining it today. So just to quickly lay the foundation, we're going to talk about the dictionary definition of the erotic, but that's not the definition that we're going to be focusing on today. The dictionary definition of the erotic today is really grounded in the sexual. The erotic is relating to or tending to arouse sexual desire or excitement. That's from Oxford. Merriam-Webster says the meaning of erotic is of, devoted to, or tending to arouse sexual love or desire. And then dictionary.com says, lol. Well, dictionary.com says arousing or satisfying sexual desire of, relating to, or treating of sexual love. So in terms of where the word erotic comes from, we know that it comes from the idea of Eros, and Eros was the god of love in ancient Greece, god or personification of love, especially carnal love, so deeply passionate and physical, and hence sexual love. So you can go learn about Greek mythology in many places, I'm sure, but we're going to talk about kind of reframing this idea of the erotic because it has so many more possibilities and understandings than simply this. So the definition of the erotic that we are going to be working with today can be summed up in one word. What is it? Tell us. It is aliveness. Okay? Easy to remember. One word, aliveness. Erotic equals aliveness. So we are working with the definition of the erotic that says, what is that deep feeling, to use the words of Audre Lorde, that makes you feel more alive? And it's a deeply personal question because it is inviting you to see the erotic in realms beyond the merely sexual, and to notice the realms of the sexual for you that are actually not erotic. What do I mean by this? Let's imagine a Venn diagram, so two intersecting circles where we have the erotic and we have the sexual, okay? So what we have to understand is that we see it represented in the image. Part of the erotic is sexual, so there's that overlap. But not all erotic experiences, aspects, understandings are sexual. And similarly, not all sexual experiences are erotic. Let's break this down further and give examples, okay? So erotic experiences that aren't sexual, we're talking about things that make you feel alive. So the examples that Audre Lorde gives are, for example, building a bookshelf, yes, making love, which would be in the intersection, sharing joy with another person, a deep kind of shared experience with someone, in my understanding of it, where you're giving each other your fullest presence. Things that make you feel alive. It could be giggling with your friends. It could be like hysterically laughing at something, or it could be sharing food with someone. You know, when you break something with someone and you eat food, like it just feels like an enlivening experience. Esther Perel in an interview has given the example of singing with someone, that can be an enlivening, erotic experience because your senses are heightened, you are enlivened. And so as you can see, people who either are asexual or people who are not interested in purely accessing the erotic through sexual experiences, which I think describes us all, can definitely still fully access the erotic because it is anything enlivening. Now, what we have to understand is we're looking at micro experiences. We want a society that's rooted in enlivening experiences and people and structures. Currently, we have a society rooted in deadly structures, especially for the marginalized, especially for the Black, for the brown, for the Asian, for the global South people, for women, for femmes, for gay people, for queer people, for trans people, for disabled people, for fat people. So we have a deadening experience. And so even though I'm obviously speaking about this, I'm communicating about it in a individual way, you could say, I really believe in a social push for enlivenment, for life. That's what we've been fighting for all of this time, is we don't want to only just be alive, but we want to be enlivened, and we want a society that is enlivening. Now let's give the example. I hope I haven't switched hands, but you know what? I tried. Of sexual experiences that are not erotic. And I think this is really, really important. So for us allosexual, meaning non-asexual people, we know, or like I know, let me say, that there are sexual experiences I've had that have not made me feel alive, that have actually made me feel dead inside. And we could think about this not only in the realm of like violence, but also in the realm of just deadening sexual experiences that feel like they're not full of erotic potential. They're either very, what's the word? Boring, like, or one person's needs are being prioritized, or you're not really connecting. You're just going through, the word I was looking for was mechanic. So a mechanic sexual experience is not erotic, right? And obviously this is me speaking from my own experience, but basically like the majority of sex that I've had hasn't been enlivening. But I think when you do have enlivening sexual experiences, that is really such a fulfilling and life-affirming experience of being fully in your body, being fully present and connected with someone, with your partner, with your partners, but essentially that experience is enlivening. So we have the circles, and we have experiences that are sexual but not erotic, and erotic that are not sexual, and then we have the intersection. I think what is the paradigm shift with this is that our society defines eroticism as only the intersection, only the things that are both sexual and therefore erotic. In fact, it equates them. It views it as one circle. But I think that this is a limited understanding of the potential of the erotic. And I understand this through the lens of the Uses of the Erotic essay. The Uses of the Erotic by Audre Lorde, as you know, one of my favorite essays by Audre Lorde, and in general, it really reframed my understanding of what the erotic is and how it can be used to change our entire standards for living and being. Recall that Audre Lorde was a self-described Black lesbian mother, warrior, and poet, and she dedicated her life and her creative talent to confronting and addressing injustices of racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia. She lived from the years of 1934 to 1992, so she died at the age of 58. She was born in Harlem, in New York. She was a writer, a womanist, a radical feminist, a professor, a philosopher, and a civil rights activist. And it's such a privilege to be able to be sharing her work with you again and again. I truly believe that her essays and her poems are sensational, and I would love for you to read them. A little bit of a caveat on Uses of the Erotic. It does have this diminishing of the pornographic within the essay, where it basically says that the erotic is higher than the pornographic. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I think Adrienne Maree Brown has a beautiful description and footnote in Pleasure Activism, a book that I love and I highly recommend that you read. So in that book, she gives beautiful just two caveats. I think the first is on this idea of the pornographic and the idea that you can find the erotic through the pornographic. Much longer conversation. Let's, if you would like to discuss that more, I link to two incredible essays by Adrienne Maree Brown on my Substack. The title of the essay or the title of the post is called Reimagining Desire. It's in the show notes for you, and it's two essays by Adrienne Maree Brown on porn. They're amazing essays. There are incredible comments from our community on these essays and how people are reimagining their relationship to porn, to desire, to their own fantasies, and reclaiming their sexual imagination, for example, by abstaining from porn. That's an example. I would love to see you in the comments of that. That's a separate discussion, would be a whole other podcast episode. Let's listen to an excerpt from Uses of the Erotic as Power, an essay written by Audre Lorde in 1978 here.
The erotic is a measure between the beginnings of our sense of self and the chaos and power of our deepest feelings. It is an internal sense of satisfaction to which, once we have experienced it, we know we can aspire. Once having experienced the fullness of this depth of feeling and recognized its power, in honor and self-respect, we can require no less of ourselves.
This is exceptionally powerful. What she's saying is that the erotic completely changes our understanding of what is possible for us, of our possibilities. Because once we have experienced that depth of feeling, that fullness, that aliveness that speaks to us on a spiritual, on an emotional, on a physical, on an intellectual level, like we are so enlivened, we are in such a deeply feeling place, it changes something in us. And what does it change? It changes our understanding of what we have the capacity to experience. And in so doing, it changes the standards we have for our lives. So once we've accessed the erotic, that's why it's the uses of the erotic as power. What is empowering, not in the modern sense, which means let me sell you a beauty product, but in the sense of liberation, is the idea that once we've experienced this power of the erotic, it becomes a lens, she says later on in the essay, through which we can start to scrutinize, evaluate, and understand our lives. I love that she says that it's not about only experiencing the fullness of this depth of feeling, but also recognizing its power. So we need a kind of awareness as to what we are experiencing. If you just have an erotic experience, but you don't recognize like, ooh, that stands out. I felt alive. I felt a depth of feeling. I felt a certain enrichment in my soul, in my being, in my body mind. It's that recognition, that awareness that you have to bring into your perspective on your life that is then going to make you the kind of person who cannot, as she says, in honor and self-respect, require any less of yourself. So I think that that kind of awareness, reflection, understanding that this experience is an anomaly in our deadening society, in our deadening world, that you felt so alive, that you felt so much depth of feeling, that recognition then changes the standards as well as the experience itself. This is really, really powerful because it says that the more we can give each other aliveness, like the implication is that the more I can make you feel alive, the more you will then understand that that could be a standard through which, for which, with which you lived. So it is very important for us to deliver aliveness to each other and to imagine a world in which we could all feel and have full access to aliveness, because in a society that means to kill you, you can't fully feel alive. And if you can, it's a function of the privilege you have in that society. So I do want to note that. What I've realized is the more I've opened myself up to this lens, the more I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. Everywhere is aliveness. You know what I mean? Because we live on the only planet that can sustain life. You know, if you look at trees and they're just like fruits and there's leaves and there's abundance. I was in Jamaica recently and there was a waterfall and it was just gushing and gushing and I was like, wow, you are so erotic. It's sensual. It's alive. You know what I mean? It's giving so much and it refuses to stop giving. We're going to be listening to so many clips because I just have so many voices that I want to bring into this conversation, okay? So let's first get another person's perspective on the erotic, okay? Esther Perel is a psychotherapist and relationship therapist. She has a really cool podcast, Where Should We Begin?, where she basically has couples therapy sessions with couples. Let's hear what she has to say about the erotic.
I come from a family of two parents who were concentration camp survivors. My two parents are the sole survivors of their entire family. And I grew up in a community in Antwerp, Belgium, that was exclusively Holocaust survivors. And in this community, I always saw two groups of people, those who did not die and those who came back to life. And those who did not die lived rather tethered to the ground. The world was a dangerous place. You could not trust, and certainly you could not enjoy or experience pleasure, because if you did, it meant you went not on guard, and if you were not on guard, shit could happen. And those who came back to life are those who understood the erotic. Eroticism as a life force, not just in its modern, narrow definition of sex, but basically, how do you reimagine yourself? How do you reinvent yourself? How do you bring back an energy, a vitality, an aliveness? And it was my parents who inspired me to look at it like that. So much of what I try to do is actually help people connect with their aliveness. And aliveness goes with meaning, goes with purpose, goes with creativity, goes with playfulness, and goes with connection.
Now, isn't that powerful? I love that so much. It's such a moving story, both taking it from her personal perspective and experience as the child of Holocaust survivors, and then also telling us more about why erotic intelligence is so important in our world.
Now, all over the world, there is one word that people who have affairs always tell me. They feel alive.
This idea that when people have affairs, they say that they felt so alive is so interesting to me, and it's such a beautiful example of why I think this is so important. People will risk so much to feel alive. You know what I mean? And the idea that people will betray and people will hurt people just to feel alive is so interesting. And you may say, oh, that's why we need polyamorous relationships. She says in this interview or this talk that even couples who are in open relationships cheat, because you have arrangements and agreements, and if you break those agreements, that is cheating. That's a form of an affair. You have disrespected the boundaries that you have drawn up as a couple. So I want you to kind of reflect, what do you think about that? The idea that when people cheat, they say, I've never felt so alive, or I felt so alive. What does that mean? And what does that mean for how we should be showing up in our relationships? In this episode, she also says, if you brought 1/10 of the imagination, the creativity, the desire that you're bringing to your affair, to your relationship, you wouldn't even need a couples therapist, which I think is such a brilliant statement that, we project all this aliveness onto this person who is external to the relationship, and therefore it becomes filled with erotic potential. But it's also because eroticism is about imagination. It's about the idea that we're creating these fantasies and we're feeling very much a strong sense of desire and of creativity and of draw and pull. But part of that draw and pull we are creating in our own consciousness. So anyways, I just wanted to add my little 2 cents to that, and let's continue. So what I want to ask you is, when do you feel truly alive? What makes you feel alive? Who makes you feel alive? Who do you feel you speak to them, or you are with them, or you listen to their voice and you feel enlivened? And one thing about me, now that I'm obsessed with aliveness, I am very much the opposite of obsessed with things that make me feel dead inside. So for example, you'll notice, no, you won't notice. Babe, they don't care what you do. No, but they care, but you know what I mean? I never talk about celebrity culture. Why? It makes me feel dead. Seeing all of these celebrities and the obsession with what they're doing, I'm literally just making a judgment on how it makes me feel about my aliveness. It doesn't. It makes me feel dead inside. My energy is drained by it, or taken to a lower vibration. And I'm trying to seek voices and ideas and patterns of being and thinking and feeling and seeing that are going to enliven me, make me feel more alive. And by this, I don't mean ignoring things that are terrible that are happening in the world. That's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is there are aspects of our everyday experience that we accept or that are imposed upon us by society, but also that sometimes we invite into our bedrooms, our rooms, that actually make us feel dead. I used to scroll on Instagram for so long. I felt dead inside. When you are scrolling on Instagram, tell me you feel alive, and I will tell you you are lying, okay? Literally, okay, no, I'm not gonna, completely reduce your experience. You, but I will speak for myself. When I was addicted to the gram, I felt dead inside. And I never want that low vibrational energy in my life. Obviously, it's there. It happens. There's people, there's experiences, there's moments. Sometimes it's me. I'm the drama.
Is it me? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama.
It happens. But I'm seeking experiences that make me feel alive. You know what I mean? Okay. So I wanted to say that there are moments that I experience now that I would not have described as erotic before. So for example, recently, I was in a park, the Boston Commons Park. Girl, people, let me tell you about the Boston Commons Park. Let me tell you about nature, okay? So it is green, okay? The air is pregnant with humidity, and I love being hot. If there's one thing about me, I'm scorch me, babe. The sun is shining. It's glistening. Oh my gosh. Literally, because of this, the lake is twinkling. It's refracting the light of the sun. And I'm sitting under this feathery, whispery tree that has this one branch that's more like a long stick, but it's flexible. Imagine this. And the stick, which is the tree branch, is moving on the lake like this, as if it's what? A vinyl. Literally, it was so erotic. I was like, this is the sexiest thing I've ever experienced. So I was just like, oh my gosh, look at this. And I took a moment to breathe with the earth and say, wow, okay, you are giving. Imagine thinking the only place to find that sense of is in sex. It's like, excuse me, no, because that is nature. If you look around at nature, like pure nature, part of the eroticism of this moment was the people. It was the fact that there were all of these different people of different ages playing, laughing, delighting, girls on picnics. Ooh, sexy, sensual, beautiful. And there was just so much aliveness. People were happy. And it gave me a kind of utopic vision of a slice of society in this dream world that we get. Because why? A park is free. Number 2, we're interacting with nature. Number 3, it brings and attracts people who probably like would not even cross paths otherwise. Number 4, there's literally music playing. Let's get money to the musicians, okay? Like what the hell? They imagine a future where all creatives are taken care of and all people are taken care of, okay? So it was this utopic vision of society, which to me was full of erotic potential, was full of aliveness. Like if we got the world we want, I think it would look a lot like a free park where people are vibing, you know what I mean? Where there's music and there's free food. There wasn't free food, but there's just like vibes, you know, maybe there's a vegetable garden and you can just go like take an apple. Oh my gosh, erotic, alive, you know what I mean? And maybe in that society we receive an education on emotional and relational intelligence such that we don't feel uncomfortable introducing ourselves to people and making friends with others. And maybe there are little circles of interest, like if you want to sing together you go to this side of the park, and if you want to dance together you go, because you know there's always movement in the park, you know what I mean? People are vibing, you know, they're moving. There's always people working out. There's people doing like it's just amazing. You know what I mean? Let's abruptly move on, okay? Adrienne Maree Brown is one of my absolute favorite authors. She's the author of Emergent Strategy, Pleasure Activism, and also We Will Not Cancel Us, Maroons, Grievers, and Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism are 2 of my favorite books. Her bio says that she grows healing ideas in public through her writing, which includes short and long form fiction, nonfiction, spells, tarot decks, and poetry. Her music, which includes songwriting, singing, and upcoming immersive musical ritual, and her podcasts, including How to Survive the End of the World, Octavia's Parables, and the Emergent Strategy podcast. Adrienne has nurtured emergent strategy, pleasure activism, radical imagination, and transformative justice as ideas, frameworks, networks, and practices for transformation. Her work is informed by 25 years of social and environmental justice facilitation, primarily supporting Black liberation. I'll link to her website, which is a really incredible resource where she has some of her articles, and I couldn't recommend highly enough pleasure activism and emergent strategy for more ideas on how to construct a new world versus purely deconstruct ours. And I really am just obsessed with her, and I really recommend you follow her. She's incredible. Adrienne Maree Brown says, I specifically love the idea from Audre Lorde's essay, Uses of the Erotic, that once you have tasted the pleasure of being so fully alive and self-realized, you cannot settle for suffering. Aha! Let's read that again, okay? Once you have tasted the pleasure of being so fully alive and self-realized, you cannot settle for suffering. And so therefore, the experience of the erotic, which most of us do come to through sex if we are sexual beings, then becomes an invitation to consider this feeling of aliveness. My breath is in my body. I'm just alive. And I know a lot of sex is deadening, actually. Let's talk about that in another day. That could actually be, like, if I could experience this in sex, why couldn't I experience this in play? Why couldn't I experience this with friends? Why couldn't I experience this feeling of aliveness? You know? Okay, let's go to the quote. So, Adrienne Maree Brown says, Audre Lorde teaches, and then this quote is from Uses of the Erotic, the essay, which I'll link to in the show notes. Once we begin to feel deeply all the aspects of our lives, we begin to demand from ourselves and from our life pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy which we know ourselves to be capable of. Oh my goodness. Let's slow down, because the erotic is so often about slowing down. Once we begin to feel deeply all the aspects of our lives, once we begin to feel our emotional life, our spiritual life, our romantic life, our intellectual life, our creative life, you know what I mean? Our familial life, all the aspects of our lives, we begin to demand from ourselves and from our life pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy which we know ourselves to be capable of. Okay. Are you with me? So our standards shift as we begin to deeply feel that we are capable of joy, of passion, of aliveness in some aspects of our lives. Then suddenly we demand different things, not only from what we do, i.e. our life pursuits, but from us, i.e. how we exist, how we live. Are we sleeping? Are we letting people into our lives who are toxic towards us? You know what I mean? Okay, I'm going to continue. Our erotic knowledge empowers us, becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our existence, forcing us to evaluate those aspects honestly in terms of their relative meaning within our lives. Another powerful sentence. Our erotic knowledge empowers us, okay? Why? It gives us power. Why? Because it's now a lens, a filter, a way of seeing, a way of understanding all aspects of our existence. So if I felt alive dancing, why don't I feel alive when I'm with this person that I'm seeing? She asked, okay? So if I felt alive when I was with this friend, why do I feel dead? Why do I feel drained when I'm with this other person? So it becomes a lens through which we can scrutinize all aspects of our lives. If I felt alive reading this novel, excited, it's just like, wow, just give me more. I want to read more. That's how I feel when I read a mystery book. I'm like, page. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. This is so amazing. I'm so alive. Oh my gosh. I'm reading tomorrow, and it is giving, okay? I do feel alive. Then suddenly it's like, okay, well, this is how I want to feel about my spiritual life. This is how I want to feel about my creative life. If I can read an amazing book, why couldn't I write an amazing book? You know what I mean? Why couldn't I devote myself to giving and creating that energy of aliveness that this book has allowed me to experience? So it becomes a lens through which we can scrutinize all aspects of our existence. And then I'm going to continue. And this is a grave responsibility projected from within each of us, not to settle for the convenient, the shoddy, the conventionally expected, nor the merely safe. Ooh! Wow. And remember, Audre Lorde is a lesbian black poet, mother, warrior. That's what she called herself. And so when we think of compulsory heterosexuality, this is a super important lens to bring in. You know what I mean? To not settle for the convenient, the shoddy, the conventionally expected, nor the merely safe. So what if you allowed yourself the fullness of your aliveness, you know what I mean, in all aspects of your life? Wow, sexy, brilliant, quote, closed. Okay, and then Adrienne Marie Brown says, I'm obsessed with how love and joy are the actual tools we need to move against the culture of fear and scarcity. We are experts at deconstruction and tearing systems and each other apart. But if what we pay attention to grows, how can we be more mindful about growing our capacity for love? Ooh, beautiful. And why did I read that? Because let's talk about love. Now, love and the erotic are necessarily very, very connected. Like, surely, obviously, and completely, right? Like, love is that which will make us feel, not every single day, but more alive. The people who love you should make you feel more alive. You know, they shouldn't make you feel, and if you've experienced others, you've experienced the feeling of someone making you feel dead. And I like this severity of this language because it just sharpens and brings into focus. It's a little bit shocking. It's a little bit unsettling. But I like the idea that, you know, what if you just said that? What if you just said, that person makes me feel dead inside, to yourself at least? So as we talk about love, obviously you got to bring in bell hooks, okay? All about love. Let's talk about that. Now, bell hooks, talking about love, says, Oh my gosh, this is the perfect quote. Like, am I an artist? Yes. She says, love makes us feel more alive. Living in a state of lovelessness, we feel we might as well be dead. Everything within us is silent and still. We are unmoved. Oh, please move me. Do not leave me unmoved. My dear friend Misako made this incredible TikTok where she said,
life becomes so much more enjoyable when you own the fact that you just will never be chill. I don't know what nonchalant is. I only know how to exist in a space of chalant. That's who I am.
don't give me a nonchalant person. I want all the chalants. I want all the chalants. And that exactly is the erotic. Don't give me nonchalance. Give me chalants. Give me aliveness. It tells me you're alive. Move me. Okay? Let's just read that bell hooks quote again. And it continues, but I just think sometimes in our society, we got to slow down. She says as she speaks extremely fast. But we have to, I believe in repetition, letting it sink in. You know, if I gave you a massage once, you'd be like, what are you doing? You got to massage in, okay? So love makes us feel more alive. Living in a state of lovelessness, we feel we might as well be dead. Everything within us is silent and still. We are unmoved. She continues. Soul murder is the term psychoanalysts use to describe the state of living death. It echoes the biblical declaration that anyone who does not know love is still in death. Cultures of domination court death. Oh my gosh, that is a 5-word power sentence. Cultures of domination court death. Literally flirt with, try to attract, try to seduce, try to glorify death. Hence the ongoing fascination with violence. The false insistence that it is natural for the strong to prey upon the weak, for the more powerful to prey upon the powerless. You know what I'm saying? So listen to what she's saying. She's saying that a culture of domination, a hierarchical culture, a culture of the powerful and the powerless, or the made to be powerless, court death. So they have a deep desire for and attraction to amplifying and continuing death. Hence the ongoing fascination with violence. And we see this actual death imposed by the state onto people, especially black, brown, indigenous people. True crime, okay, gaming, death, okay? Fascination with violence. Fascination is a different word than perpetuation. Fascination means we are drawn to looking at violent things. We have a desire to be entertained and to look at violence. She continues to say, in our culture, the worship of death is so intense, it stands in the way of love. That is beautiful, precious, and profound. And I think the connection there is that we want to contrast love, aliveness, death, violence, and our culture's obsession with death. Another quote from Bell Hooks where she says, our cultural obsession with death consumes energy that could be given to the art of loving. And I think that's really the crux of it. Our cultural obsession with death consumes energy. Again, we have this idea of energy that could be given to the art of loving. So how can we redirect our energy, our attention to that which is enlivening, to that which is loving? Okay, I think that's really beautiful. We are about to wrap up part 1 of this conversation on the erotic, but I want to leave you with how the erotic functions in the life of and according to Audre Lorde. So when we think of the erotic, what are some tangible examples of how it manifested in her life? Let's listen to what she has to say right here.
The erotic functions for me in several ways. The first is in the power which comes from sharing deeply any pursuit with another person. The sharing of joy, whether physical, emotional, psychic, or intellectual, forms a bridge between the sharers, which can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared between us, and it lessens the threat of difference, that difference which is always seems so insurmountable, as for instance we have just seen. Another important way in which the erotic connection functions for me is the open and fearless underlining of my capacity for joy. In the way that my body stretches to music, opens into response, hearkening to its deepest rhythms, so every level upon which I sense also opens to the erotically satisfying experience, whether it is dancing, building a bookcase, writing a poem, making love, examining an idea. That self-connection shared is a measure of the joy which I know myself capable of feeling, a reminder of my capacity for that feeling. And that deep and irreplaceable knowledge of my capacity for joy comes to demand from all my life that it be lived within the knowledge that such satisfaction is possible and does not have to be called marriage, nor God, nor man, nor an afterlife. This is one reason why the erotic is so feared in the society that we live in, and so often relegated to the bedroom alone, where it is recognized, or when it is recognized at all. For once we begin to feel deeply all the aspects of our lives, we begin to demand from ourselves and from all our lives' pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy which we know ourselves to be capable of. In other words, our erotic knowledge empowers us, becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our existence, forcing ourselves to evaluate those aspects honestly in terms of their relative meanings within our lives, in terms of their erotic value. And this is a grave responsibility. It's projected from within each one of us, not to settle for what is convenient or shoddy, for the conventionally expected, nor what is merely safe.
Whew. Wow. It gets me every single time. I hope that these words have moved you as deeply as they have moved me. This is one reason why the erotic is so feared in the society in which we live, because they know if we were able to fully invite this lens, this power into our lives and let it stay, we would have completely different expectations, demands, standards for our existence. We would begin to demand from ourselves and from our life pursuits, which means every single area of our lives, which includes work, capitalism, systems, the systems we exist in, that they feel in accordance with that joy, with that power, with that deep feeling, which we know ourselves to be capable of. Our demands for what we would be willing to put up with would change. And if enough people demand a new kind of life, we know that a new world can become and can be made possible. I love you so much. I hope that this has moved you. I hope that you'll listen to her full essay, which is on YouTube, and I will link to it in the show notes. I'm so grateful to Audre Lorde for sharing her voice with us. 1978 this was written, and so much of it remains so powerful and so relevant today. I hope that you enjoyed hearing from Audre Lorde, from Adrienne Maree Brown, from Esther Perel, and I hope that this lingers on your consciousness, this idea of aliveness. I invite you to ask yourself what not only makes you feel more alive, but in what areas you currently are struggling to access your fullest aliveness, and what can be done potentially together or alone for you to be your most alive self. With this question being asked, I fully understand and know that our society is structured on the opposite of aliveness, is structured on an imposed kind of not only physical, but also social and spiritual and intellectual and metaphysical death. And this is really important to acknowledge, especially since I am a Black person in this world, and the idea of Afro-pessimism, the idea of they don't want us to survive. But I want us to still push back against that and define for ourselves, as Audre Lorde is inviting to us, in what ways are we settling for what is conventionally expected of us, for what is safe for us, for what is shoddy, what is convenient, rather than what makes us feel our deepest feelings, what makes us feel truly alive. I would love for you to create a note on your phone or a journal page in your journal about aliveness. Let's talk about this. What are the sounds, the senses, the feelings, the sensations that make you feel most alive? And also, in service of others, which you know I deeply believe in, how can we bring each other, our communities, our audiences, more aliveness? That's it, sunshines. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Paradigm Shift with Ayandastood. I'm sending you so much love. The the aliveness in me recognizes and loves and appreciates the aliveness in you. I hope this was an enlivening experience. As always, please, if you can, leave a 5-star rating review on Spotify and Apple. This helps the podcast find everyone it is meant for, and it helps my creative dreams for this project come true. Number 2, if you would like to catch up with me and stay in deeper touch, please follow my newsletter, my Substack at ayandastood.substack.com. Have a sensational, enlivening day. I'm sending you all the love, and I'll see you on part 2 of this conversation and on the episodes to come. Love you. Bye.